Hey everybody, and thanks for joining me on another episode of Straight Jacket White Rabbit. My name's Adam, and as always, I'll be your host. Tonight we're going to dive into another example of spirits and ghosts, you guys. Haunted past, haunted history. Today we're going to be talking about Bachelor's Grove Cemetery in Illinois. Now, Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, you guys, is not widely known and accepted for the most part as the most haunted cemetery in America. Bachelor's Grove Cemetery is located just outside of a town called Midlothian. Now, not a lot of special things have been reported recently. There are still some activity that's been posted recently that I've seen from some expeditions out there from some ghost hunting crews, but not much in the way other than some orb light, things like that. But the reason this cemetery is famous, you guys, is because there's literally so much that's been reported here over the years. Now, reports of hauntings on this property that we can find go back to as far as I've seen reports that happened, some occasion reporting in the 50s, you guys. And in the 50s, there was a few reports of lights, orbs, sounds, things like that. Before that, you guys, there wasn't a lot of people looking into this stuff, and they certainly weren't reporting paranormal things to the press. So it's not to say there were no reports in this long span of time. It's really hard to come by reports. There are a few spotted here and there throughout its history, but it really began picking up, you guys, in the 60s and 70s. Now, in the 60s and 70s, Bachelor's Grove was known and popularized as a haunted place. And so you would have lots of partiers and people going out there to tell ghost stories, and they would light campfires and sit around and try to experience paranormal. There were people who went out there and did unspeakable things of acts of vandalism, you guys. There were examples, and I'll just give some examples. There are tons of missing headstones, markers, bones have been missing from graves. There have been graves there that were dug up, and corpses that were desecrated, skeletons that were desecrated. There's even been a case where there was actually a skull dug up out of one of the graves and placed on top of it, used for who knows what kind of purposes, guys. We know for a fact that there have been documented cases by numerous people over the decades, you guys, about satanic activity going on here. People coming out and performing rituals at the site. Even the rangers responsible for the area say that they are constantly finding decapitated chicken heads or full-on chickens with their heads cut off and the body still there. Occult signs, different symbols and things that are associated with the occult. Anyone who knows me when I talk about the paranormal, you guys, knows that one of the things I talk about a lot is the willingness to communicate opens a doorway, and it invites things to you, or even to a location or an item. Now, you're messing around with satanic rituals, pagan ritual, any rituals, you guys, and you don't know what they do, it can stir up some massively negative energies. Not to mention the fact that there's a lot of dark history here we'll go over in the course of this. So, first off, I want to say, what is Bachelor's Grove? I want to kick back a little bit to what is Bachelor's Grove most famous for? They're most famous for the picture that was taken of the Lady in White, or the Madonna of Bachelor's Grove Cemetery. Now, the Madonna picture for the Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, you guys, is a photo taken by a woman named Judy Huff in 1991. And the image captured was supposedly using infrared film, depicts a figure that was sitting on a headstone of this woman. Now, even before this photo was taken. There have been reports, whether or not you believe that the photo is real or fake, because there has been debates about this for years, you guys. I'm one of those people, I like to double and triple check things. You know, if I can't see the negative or another angle or something, I mean, you got to give me more than one still shot frame, especially with the cameras back then, for me to tell you that this wasn't just a woman who is sitting in the cemetery, God knows what, reading. There are people who do that. I come across it all the time. You know, this person could have just taken a picture of this woman who, before she even knew he was approaching her. This could have been a staged event where they just took a picture of this lady that they brought with them. We don't know. It could be the real thing. I don't have a way to verify that, but what I can say is over the years, dating back before this picture, there were reports of a woman in white who wanders this cemetery both alone and supposedly carrying what appears to be an infant child. A lot of the time it's said that she's crying when she's encountered. It looks like it appears though she's weeping. Other times it appears that she's just wandering around searching for her child, it appears. Now, there is a grave site in the cemetery that people believe is the child itself that this woman is looking for. I can't make that assumption, you guys. I can't make that leap just because I don't know the history of that child. I haven't done the history into that child's family or anything. Was there, in fact, a grieving mother? We don't know. But what I can say is that this cemetery, you guys, has no shortage of things that would cause not just a haunting, but multiple hauntings and possibly a negative entity to establish a nest or a home there. Once again, when I say negative entity, you guys, you take it whatever way you want. Demons, negative spirits, bad energy, juju, I don't care. However you want to take it. I don't put names to things I don't know what they are, or I try not to, unless it's like an example I'm giving. But in this case, there is some kind of negative energy because people have caught growls, they've caught threats, they've caught inappropriate language, all on EVPs, electronic voice phenomenon, on tapes or digital recorders. It doesn't matter. There is no shortage of EVPs coming out of this cemetery, you guys. I mean, literally, I've never heard of a crew that has investigated this cemetery and not gotten EVPs, light sources coming out of nowhere in the middle of the woods outside the cemetery, voices. There's been reports of actual full-bodied apparitions of an automobile. Yes, that's right. The body of the automobile, an old-style Ford T-Bird. Okay, or Model T. I'm sorry, T-Bird. Old Ford-style Model T. Cruising down the abandoned, it's an overgrown road now. It's no longer in use, you guys. But there have been reports of this car and even hearing the sound of this car traveling down these pathways at night. There have been reports, though unconfirmed, that the infamous mob in Chicago used to dispose of some of their, let's just say, untimely victims in and around the cemetery, especially in the pond right across from it and the woods surrounding it. And there are myths of them even burying people in that cemetery in unmarked graves. Like I said, these are unconfirmed reports, but there are witnesses who claim to have been friends with people involved with the mob in that city at that time, who heard through the grapevine that this is one of the places that they would dispose of people. Now, that being said, you guys, murder off the bat can cause an angry spirit. It can cause a violent spirit. It can cause hauntings, residual energy. It can cause echoes. It can cause, there's so many things this could be, and it could be multiple of more. There can be more than one of them. We could be talking about a place that's got 4 to 5 different specific types of hauntings. Not just spiritual, there could be demonic or negative entities also here attacking people. There have been people who've been pushed, scratched. There are people, like I said, this is a very, very active haunt, you guys. Now, as far as opening portals go, what we were talking about, the satanic people who come in, it's not that they're satanic. I mean, yes, that's obviously negative energy, you guys, but it's the intent. I've said it once, I'll say it a million times. You're asking dark, especially if you're asking for specifically for dark negative entities to come and talk to you. Don't be surprised when dark negative entities come and they don't listen to you when you tell them to go home. Okay, I tell people all the time, Ouija boards are fun, yay, if you like the dark side of stuff. But just because you use one does not mean you get to turn off the switch that you flipped. Your willingness to communicate with them and see them and hear them. And in some cases, this can, if you don't learn how to control it, snowball into a full-on, I'm going to say a slight psychic connection with the spirit world, you guys. You'll start to feel them where you go. You can kind of tell when you're around one all the time. And then some people's cases, depending on the strength of their ability, they can see these people more often than others. These types of areas that get these types of seances and rituals and things like that done in them, it's creating a focal point for these spirits that know that people want to communicate. People are going there to communicate. This is why all these shows nowadays that are all popular, the paranormal investigation shows, you guys, look it up. All of these places report an increase in activity after they leave. It's because these ghosts now have numerous Nimrod, one day a year paranormal investigators showing up, poking at these spirits that are made popular by TV and then leaving. And of course they're going to get more active. They're having more and more energy focused at them. They're having more and more people come by that give them energy. We are just as good as a battery to a spirit, you guys. I've seen people drained as soon as spirit activity starts. I've seen people so tired they look practically drunk. They're stumbling. They can't. They're all that. You know, right as you, like when you first wake up, that foggy headedness. They're just all foggy when they talk to you. They're kind of out of it. I've seen this in person. So, you know, be careful what you wish for and what when you do things like this. I do this because I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way. And honestly, I wish I saw more things. If I had the money, you guys, I would travel the United States, going from one haunted place to another, checking them out, checking out their local histories and lores and legends about, you know, the sites that are haunted and finding out what they're haunted by or why. I unfortunately, you know what I mean? I don't have a contract with the History Channel or the Discovery Channel. It's just me. But I can tell you that you can do this stuff anywhere. The funner side is, like I said, I like doing historical places. I'm a history buff. This is a very old cemetery. Now, we're going to move on from the satanic worship and stuff for a minute, and we're going to go to the next thing, the mob killings. Like I said, even though unconfirmed, it matches up with sightings. Several people have seen the same odd ghost, and I'm going to tell you what it is. There have been a pair of men supposedly carrying something large through the wood line towards the retention pond. People have also claimed to see 2 men just walking away from the retention pond. So I'm thinking something big and heavy towards it. And then other people are just seeing people walk back from the pond. Cars that look like old gangster cars driving through. You know, this is Prohibition era gangsters, you guys. This is Al Capone in them. This is not, Little Smith. This is a big time mobster organization area, very close by proximity to this. And I would not doubt for 1 minute that seeing the picture of this protected forest that surrounds this area, it would be a rather ideal place off a highway that you could just get rid of some evidence. People have also heard weird things that sound like people begging for their life, screams of "no, please, please," things like that. Very eerie stuff in the middle of the night. Now, a lot of people who saw the Ghost Adventurers, and there was another show that did an episode there, they both caught the lights that people see in the forest, okay? And I think people are too quick to dismiss these. Every time you catch an orb or a light in a wooded area, people go, "It's a firefly." Guys, fireflies are very distinct, and if you've ever seen them in person, you know what they look like compared to an orb of light. I can tell you right now, the one, especially on the Ghost Adventures, that's the one I saw most recently, probably like a year or two ago, which is weird because it's, I believe, a really old episode. But I watched it fairly recently, and the one thing that stood out of my mind whenever I watched that episode and saw the orb of light that they captured was there is one point where this thing flashes so, it gets, the light grows so intense that it puts out multiple little ringlet lights and things around it. And that doesn't happen with fireflies, guys. Take it from me. I've seen fireflies. Yes, they're pretty. Yes, they're cool. Well, they're not pretty, but they're cool. And they don't look like that, okay? So I'm getting really tired of that being an excuse. Just like that's the reason why a lot of us stopped using orbs as evidence, because people go, "Oh, it's a dust particle," or "It's a bug flying by." Yes, some people mistake these things for it, but professional investigators, we've looked at thousands of photos, or some people hundreds of thousands of photos. There are very distinct differences you can see with the motion of certain objects, or the way the light refracts off certain objects or doesn't refract off certain objects. Whether the speed increases, decreases, if there's any drafts. There's lots of different elements you have to look at, the areas you're in, everything. But they're not all dismissible as dust or bugs or all this other stuff that people come up with. I believe that they've caught on multiple instances, even a few amateur videos I've seen coming out of Bachelor's Grove, that they are indeed catching lights of a paranormal nature in the woods. Now, we're going to go from the unconfirmed to the confirmed. There have been multiple actual murders that have happened within, literally hundreds of yards, a couple hundred yards from the cemetery, and a couple even less than that, or some less than that. But there was a murder, a woman who murdered her boyfriend in supposed self-defense. There was another murder that happened just a few years prior to that. This place has a very violent history, and a lot of people who visit here say that they feel a very aggressive pressure on them, a very intense anger almost. They also, one of the most other reported things is the feeling of people watching you, something intently staring at you. And for those of you who've never felt this before, I want to explain, it's really hard to do, but if you've ever pissed somebody off and you're not looking at them, but you're in the same room as them and you can tell that they're staring a hole at you, it's the same feeling. This is one of the most reported things. Almost instantaneously, once you step out of your vehicle, it's like you're being watched. It's this sudden, intense feeling of scrutiny. Also, like I said, anger. Some people report sadness, which with the lady in white would make sense. I'm not sure I would call her a true lady in white because we don't know the backstory of this woman or anything else, but we're going to call her the Madonna of Bachelor's Grove Cemetery. A lot of people use that as an alternate name. I'm going to do that because I don't consider her to be a true lady in white. Now, like I said, the photo may be real. But like I said, we can't validate anything about it. We can't validate the backstory. We can't validate who the woman would be, or if that was her child, or anything. So really, there's no point in calling it a lady in white unless we know it is. Just because she was dressed in white doesn't necessarily, that's a description, not the type of spirit. Also, wanted to get out there, you guys, one of the other things people see in here is a vanishing building, believe it or not. A small white, I believe this was a barn or some kind of a farmhouse, maybe. But it moves. Locations is where people see it. People have seen it, spotted it, but never in the same place as other people who've seen or spotted it. Which is weird, because if someone was copying, hey, I saw a house in the woods, wouldn't you want to say that you saw it in the same place someone else reported to see it, to kind of give your story validity if you were lying about it? For all these different reports of this broken down, disheveled looking house, this small house, showing up on random parts of the property, kind of to me gives a little bit more, credibility to the story. Why would you say it would move if there was no context for why the house would move? I've never heard of a story of a mysterious house that vanishes, so I really like that one. Other reports: a man on horseback. A dark figure on horseback seems to be an intimidating spirit and one of immense presence, is what some people have said. Now, we don't know who the man on horseback is. It could be the original property owner. One of the things about this property that is so awesome, you guys, is we don't know, like I said, why it's so haunted. It could be all of the different types of rituals that have been held on this property and around this property. It could be because of the murders. It could be because of all of these things creating some kind of a perfect storm. You also have to understand, even though we don't have any documents of burial grounds or anything weird like that as far as Native Americans go, this is also heavily Native American country before it was settled by the English who moved here. This was a highly colonized area. I believe there was 9 different tribes in this area that we're talking about. So chances are there was at least there could have been battles fought in this area, fallen, Native Americans. And they really don't like when you mess with their grave sites. That becomes extremely active almost every time I've ever heard of it. So if there was some kind of a Native American buried on these grounds, that might have upset them. That is a little more fringe of a theory. I honestly, just from reading all the history and seeing the history and documentaries and everything else about this, I tend to believe it's just the murders and the satanic rituals and things that are drawing negative entities to a place that is already a point of power. Points of power, you guys, run all over this earth, and I'm not just talking about ley lines, okay? There are points of extreme power all over the earth, whether it's a thin point in the veil, whether it's just a naturally occurring power energy spike, whether it's ley lines. These things happen, and sometimes they happen in very odd places like cemeteries. This could be what's feeding these spirits and making this cemetery so darn active. If there was a natural energy spike that happens around this area, then even if it's a deep underground spike, which is something that you wouldn't necessarily constantly read on, any given meter that most people would use, it could still be giving enough energy to cause these spirits to have enough power to manifest on the frequency which they do at this cemetery, you guys, which is very frequently. I don't think I've ever heard so many accounts of somewhere that is full-bodied apparitions. A lot of people see apparitions, you guys. Not a lot of people see full-bodied apparitions. It's usually shadows, very quick movement, like you just saw, like feet go by a door, things like this. Not a lot of people see a solid bodied apparition, and so it's really cool that this place has as many sightings as it's had over the years, if people's sightings are believed to be credible. Now, unverified mob killings aside and actual murders that happened aside at this place, believe it or not, it's still able to get even creepier than that, you guys, okay? These people have, these people in this cemetery, and I say these people, I know they're spirits, but it's just the way I refer to them. These people have had enough. These spirits that rest here, I'm sure, have had just about enough of the shenanigans. So people wonder why they get, well, get out. Does it have to be demonic? No. Does it have to be necessarily evil? No. It could be just vengeful and angry. Look at, like I said, look at the amount, just the sheer amount of destruction that this cemetery has faced and been defaced on a regular basis for decades. I mean, like I said, headstones missing, broken, smashed, written on, actual graves being dug up, and bodies or parts of skeletons being exhumed. There were actual relatives who had people moved out of this cemetery and their bodies exhumed and moved to other cemeteries as well. Spirits don't do well when you mess with their environment, when you mess with their home. They get pissed. And a lot of times, even if they don't get pissed, they get a lot more active. So this is why renovations and things like this or demolitions cause so much haunting activity to happen, you guys. They don't appreciate you messing with things the way that they like them. Now, so I'm going to give a little bit of a, whether or not I believe the hype, because there is a lot of undocumented things here to this. The photo, we don't know if it was real or not. We don't have any of the original, it's not like they kept the negatives or anything like that we can examine. We do have verified reports of murders very close to that property, but we also have a lot of unconfirmed rumors of mob deaths and things like that. So do I think that this place is haunted? I absolutely do. And not only will I say that I do believe it's haunted, but I honestly have to say it's on my list of somewhere I would love to go and investigate. I think that a nighttime investigation, even if I couldn't do the cemetery itself because they've been more particular about letting people in there to do investigations at nighttime, the forest around there actually have camping areas, you guys. The forest that surrounds this place has massive camping areas. So we, at some point, I may be able to go camping out there and, just wander close to see if I can get any activity, because it's not just the cemetery that's haunted. I believe it's the Rubio Woods. Let me see real quick. I want to make sure. Yeah. They're not, set aside as some peaceful woods. They're very reported to be haunted, and they've actually had reports of being haunted before this. I believe it was in 1845. There were stories of things being seen in the woods, creatures with red eyes, who have also, by the way, coincidentally been seen from inside of Bachelor's Grove Cemetery. Red-eyed creatures, you guys, not an entity generally you want to mess with. That is where we're going to go off and say that is an evil spirit. That is a dark, dark entity. Red eyes, you guys, is not typically something you could see in a human spirit. I'm not saying that I know all and see all, but I've never heard of a humanoid haunting where people see red eyes. I've seen them be human. I've seen them be humanoid and have red eyes, but it's almost always associated when people come in there or psychics come in there with a demonic or darker entity, not a human spirit. So these non-human spirits with the red eyes are not something most people want to mess around with. These are the types of things that follow you home. Okay, these are the types of things that follow you home and create havoc and mayhem and try to mess with you for days, possibly weeks or months or longer. Now, that being said, that's kind of where I was going to is many people who have come to this cemetery have walked away saying that something from this place followed them home. And it didn't feel good. It felt angry and almost oppressive. So, if you're ever out in that area, that neck of the woods, maybe you should swing by for a little day trip. Walk through the cemetery, take a few snapshots. Who knows? Maybe you could send me a photo if you capture the lady in white. Till next time, this has been Straight Jacket White Rabbit signing off. You guys have a great evening.